Right now, let's talk quarterback, because whether he plays or not on Saturday, he's going to be the Longhorn quarterback moving forward as soon as he's healthy. Matthew Caldwell may have to man the roster and the team on Saturday. But, Steve Sarkisian, listen to Steve Sarkisian, and I'm going to play a prominent ESPN or former ESPN analyst who played quarterback at a high level when I was in college, who thinks that Arch may have turned a corner for his whole career with what he did on Saturday. And I'll let him explain that here coming up. Let's hear. I want to play this for kind of setting the table. Here's Sark talking about Diego Pavia, the quarterback they will face this week, and what he brings to the Vanderbilt team with his experience and his competitiveness and his toughness. But this is interesting. I thought from Sark, a quarterback, watching another quarterback, and now trying to develop his own quarterback, I thought this was an interesting comment.
Take all three phases to battle and compete. Obviously, the quarterback is the tip of the spear. He's one of the more competitive, players that I've competed against. He's their leading rusher. He obviously passes the ball. He makes plays at critical moments when they need to have it. And so he's a guy that he's getting all the praise that he's getting is well deserved. He's a very good football player, and I think one thing about playing quarterback, it's not always about the passes you throw. It's not always about the runs you make. It's about instilling belief in your teammates and instilling belief in your organization, instilling belief in your fan base. And I think Diego Pavia has done that for that program. And so,
all right, so there it is, instilling belief. And what I saw, and I've said this week, and really in the On Texas Football watch along, because I do that every game with our friends at On Texas Football. So you're watching the game, you're talking about it play by play. Essentially, you're not doing play by play, but you're just talking about the game. And I remember after he led Texas on that touchdown drive to make it 38-28. And they showed the sidelines, and you saw Arch, encouraging the defense. Hey, come on, get us a stop, get us the ball back. And you saw a guy, in my mind, growing up right then, because he was trying to instill belief in his football team. Hey, it's been a rough day, but if you get us a stop, we're ready to go. If you get us a stop, we're hot. They're tired on defense. Get us the ball back. And that led to a stop, which led to another field goal that got it to within a one-score game at 38-31, and that led to the Niblett punt return. But I have no doubt, or I'll never know, but I felt like even if Niblett doesn't return the punt, the defense got him another stop, and they still had 2 minutes and 3 timeouts to go score and tie the game and go to overtime. And maybe if you're Sark, as tired as that defense looked, go for 2. But either way.
Right.
But that's what I saw as a young guy who hadn't he's given his team pause for a while for this year where...
Right, in the past you wouldn't feel that way about him getting down the field.
He looked shaky.
Right, so you're like, can we get past the 50 here?
And, of course, you can say, well, there's a tired Mississippi State defense and whatnot, but I wanted to play Danny Canel because Danny Canel, you remember him from ESPN and doing his thing. I remember when I was in college here in Austin, Danny Canel and then Charlie Ward were the big-time quarterbacks for Bobby Bowden when his Florida State teams were powerhouses in the 90s. And he said something earlier this week on his podcast. Now, he doesn't do ESPN anymore, but he said the fourth quarter comeback and win at Mississippi State this past Saturday might not just be a season-saving win for Texas, but might be, from a quarterback perspective, which is his, maybe a turning point in his long-term development. Listen to Danny Canel and cited an example he had when he played quarterback at Florida State.
I think that game for Arch Manning could be a pivot point for his entire career. Where you look at him differently. It was similar. So the last game of my junior year was the choke at Doak when we were down 31-3. We came back, scored 28 points. I know the way I felt about myself, but I also know the way my coaches look at that. It was fireworks everywhere.
That's what it was like. This is such an amazing moment for Danny Canel.
But I do think there are some games that you look at, and it's like the first time you did something special. Now, granted, I thought maybe that was going to be the Oklahoma game. Then he had the Kentucky setback. And does it mean he's going to be flawless from here on out? No. But I think it does go a long way to a lot of the critics, a lot of the naysayers, a lot of people that said he was overrated. I think even more so within his own locker room, his coaching staff, everybody. And if I'm Sark, maybe the same thing that we saw with Charlie Ward at Florida State when he struggled, I would do more no huddle. I would let him go out and just play. Because I thought that's when things kind of opened up for him. They're playing a little bit more panic mode, going more pace. You just start playing football. I think that could be a huge pivot point for Arch Manning's career.
All right, interesting. And I think that's, again, you don't want to make too much of it. That was a great quarter on the road, down 17. But then you got to learn to be a leader to your team, to lead your team, instill that belief that Diego Pavia kind of just has naturally at Vanderbilt that, Clark Lee almost had to convince that whole program that they could not be losers, right? They had to instill a winning mindset. Texas has a winning mindset as a program, but Arch Manning had to learn to be a winner, learn to be a leader. First, he had to learn to make accurate throws, but all of that is a process. And we've kind of watched the sausage being made for Arch here over the course of this season in real time, from the Ohio State struggles to the Oklahoma and the struggles of September where he's in his own head, to the Oklahoma game. Now we go fast forward to Kentucky and the communication issues with a backup center and no protection, to this where it was good early, then rough, and then no, I'm going to instill belief in my team by saying, hey, if you get us the stop, I'll take the down and score. And that's when he says, your whole locker room looks at you differently. Well, the defensive players heard him saying, hey, go get us a stop. I know you're tired, but get us one more stop. Get us one more stop, and we'll come win this game. And they did. Now, it would have been the perfect ending if he could have thrown the touchdown pass to Emmett Mosley in the end zone there. But same time, it happened, and Emmett Mosley made the throw. But we know the heavy lifting was done by Arch Manning, and that's big. Now, later in the week we'll get into what he said about opening up the offense more and letting Arch just play. That's something that Sark had to be convinced he could do. Maybe that is something that pivots when he does come back with good health from the concussion. But either way, I thought that was a really interesting point from a player who played the perspective from his perspective, and say, I remember a game like that my whole career was different after that comeback at home against whoever it was. They were down 31-3-1. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you can only be so rah-rah, and it has to be authentic. And in that moment, the guys really have belief, right? These kids some of them are 18 years old out there. And I think the fact that Arch Manning just hasn't, where we're going, is this going to be his 10th start, I believe? Still small sample size, being a leader of the team. And so I'm with you here, E. It was a good performance, but I had faith as they made their way back. Even if Ryan Niblett didn't take that back, like, they could go down and score this. He's been that good on the offensive side of the ball, and he's been willing his way. And even in overtime, when he had the run that got him banged up, he got the first down for the team. I mean, he was putting his body out there and making great throws. I go back to the one right when the fourth quarter start. Ryan Wingo just wide open, but when he just slings it out there and he's getting out of this pocket that was collapsing under him, he really is growing before our eyes. I know we keep saying that, but that's what happens. That's why the Manning family wants him there for a couple seasons, right? You got to get about 28 to 30 games under your belt.
They want 30 plus for Arch in college, for Sark, or learning the system. But again, when I say get out of your own head, we saw him get out of his own head. He
100%.
wasn't thinking anymore. He was
just playing football.
He was just
100%.
playing ball. And, it was all working, but that's him just letting it go.
Right.
Just saying, man, quit thinking about mechanics, quit thinking about everything you're being drilled and coached and, playing paralyzed. He just played.
It's easy to overthink when you're playing teams that are much lesser opponents too, I feel like, E, where those looks are wide open. Those yips kind of creep in when the pressure's coming in, and Mississippi State or Florida or whoever it's been is just, you got to get the ball out now. You got to make a play happen here.
And in addition to the defense responding, the whole offense was like, all right, let's go. Yeah. Hey, the protection was better. Trey Wisner had his best pass protection quarter of his career, picking up blitzes. And Jack Endries wasn't in the passing game, but he was blocking his tail off as a tight end. All of it. And I think, I'm not going to give it all to Arch, but you could see Arch kind of willing that. That was pretty impressive.
It instills confidence in the whole team, right? It starts with him.
You just heard Sark say it always starts with the quarterback. It always starts with the quarterback. And the opposite is true. If there's not belief in the quarterback, your team's not going to perform because, if I do my job, is that guy going to, make the throw? And that's why quarterbacks get benched and whatnot. Wanted to play this from Sark too, talking about if they have to go with Matthew Caldwell, what drew them to Matthew Caldwell in the portal, but also it leads to the passing game and how it finally started to click with Emmett Mosley back healthy, Ryan Wingo starting to get connection with Arch, with DeAndre Moore as a veteran. Listen to the kind of his two-part answer here, talking about maybe Matthew Caldwell and why they recruited him, and then did the passing game find something that they can build on moving forward?
Yeah, we looked at a few guys. Everybody was looking everywhere. I mean, everybody's trying to figure out who's your backup, what not, and it's hard to, I think, in this day and age, to keep multiple really, high-level, five-star type quarterbacks. So you got to look around. I think no more is more telling than what Ole Miss, figured out with their guy. And so, it was just felt like the right fit, honestly, with Matt. For us, passing game-wise, that was what was needed in the moment, and we've We challenged, oddly enough, the receivers and the quarterbacks Friday night about the way we needed to play the game. And I played a fair amount of older clips, some from here of other players, some from the last place I was at with some of those players, and some from the current guys on this team of similar plays we wanted to run and how they needed to be ran. And that was the expectation, right? That's why they were brought here. And to those guys' credit, they really responded. And they didn't play perfect. You know, there's plays that they'd love to have back. But, man, they competed and they played fast. And we're at our best when we play fast on the perimeter, and then when the quarterback trusts that play speed that they're playing with. And I thought Art showed a lot of trust in those guys Saturday, and their play speed and their playmaking showed up. You know, like I said, there was a couple those two touchdown catches by Parker and Emmett. I mean, those are elite catches. Those are about as high level catches as you can make. In the red area, tight quarters, any bobble in either one of those is not a touchdown. And so the ability to make those strong catches were big, and that just builds confidence and that builds trust for the quarterback.
All right, so did they find something? Can they build on that is the question. When and if Arch Manning returns. I thought that was a good conversation, and we'll build on that as the week goes on. But did Arch Manning turn a quarter, or was it just one good quarter? That's because we thought the same thing with the Oklahoma performance, and then the Kentucky game happened. It's watching the sausage being made. But there's a good quarterback discussion.